welcome to another Zelda podcast. I'm David, your host today, and today I am joined by Kady Roberts once again. Kady, how you doing?
I'm doing so good. I'm very excited for this episode.
Whoa, both of our energy is kind of high right now. I can feel it. And we haven't even had a cup of coffee or anything. I think, well, what are we talking about today?
We are going to be talking about, I think it's the eight different regions of Breath of the Wild, which I know you're going to be like, but Kady, there is way more than 8 towers in Breath of the Wild. Well, according to the wiki page, they categorize them as 8 regions, and then there's like things broken up. In the actual episode itself, we'll explain though.
Nice pivot there. I like that. That was great. You're absolutely right. We're talking about the regions. I think we're both excited to talk about the regions. I think based on some of our pre-show chatter, I think we're both excited to be talking about these things and gush a little bit about the Breath of the Wild locations and all of that. I have a little bit of listener feedback that I want to do first, and then I think we just kind of jump right into it. You're absolutely right. There's 15 quote unquote regions because there's 15 towers. Then there's like 4 main regions because of where the divine beasts are. Mm-hmm. But then many sources say that there's like 8 quote-unquote geographical regions. Yeah. So I think we're going to try to focus on those 8. But yeah, here we go. Listener feedback. This one's over here. Oh, I don't know how to pronounce this handle. And actually, this listener feedback was supposed to be in our previous episode where we were talking about vendors and things. Oh, okay. Because this listener feedback talks a little. Well, you'll understand why it was supposed to be in our other episode. But I still wanted to at least have it be in an episode that we did together. I didn't want to read it in one of the other ones. So this is a response to our top 10 shopping destinations episode from season 5, episode 17 that Celeste and I recorded together. The screen name it's CTHUSIEST. So Sithuist_Jeff said, "Hey there, AZP. I love listening to your show while I'm at work. My day goes by just a little bit faster when I'm listening to all of you. I always look forward to what the next topic is going to be. Keep it up. So I also love the dye shop in Hateno Village because it just seems very impractical."
I would agree with that.
Dropping humans from the second floor. Luckily, it's that magic dye that only affects clothes and not Link's skin. Yes, good point. _Jeff. However, I must say that my favorite shop to visit, and this is a cheat because it's a marketplace, but it's probably the area I spent most of my time in Breath of the Wild, and that's Gerudo Town. I just love this area. The music, even though it's in the desert, it has a certain beauty that Breath of the Wild captured perfectly. Enjoy the rest of your year, and have a safe and happy holiday. Oh, wow, this is a comment from probably before 2023, and thank you so much, Jeff. We spoke about the earring shop in our previous episode. There's so
many good places in Gerudo Town.
There really is. The first time I was in Gerudo Town, I kind of maybe was a little overwhelmed because it kind of felt a little bit like a maze, and some of the aesthetics were all the sand walls. It was sometimes I would kind of think to myself, like, wait, am I in the back alley or am I in the front? Or I'd get a little disoriented once in a while. But there are a lot of great spots.
I didn't even realize until like the end of my playthrough that there was a goddess statue in Gerudo Town. Yeah. I just because obviously it's like.
Isn't it off
there
to the
would
side?
Be one in every. It's like in the back alleys by like this older woman who knows that Link is like a boy. And they have like a nice little conversation. But yeah, because it's just I got so lost wandering around in there.
Yeah, but it is one of the things we spoke about in our episode 2 of this season was how Kakariko Village is like a really well-realized village, and it feels like people live there and stuff like that. When I first went into Gerudo Town, I didn't have that feeling. It did kind of feel like just almost like shops in a mall. Yeah. But when you do spend more time in Gerudo Town, you do start seeing very realistic details. Stuff like an actual bar, quite frankly, an actual restaurant, actual houses.
One of my favorite places that doesn't really have any practical use, I just like that it's there, is they have like a relationship class you can go to where they teach Gerudo women how to go out and get husbands. I think it's so fun. I think it's such a really cool little detail.
Yeah. And so I did as the more time I spend in Gerudo Town, the more I realize that there's a lot of fidelity and details there, which is cool. All right, I have two other complimentary comments here. We had a recent blog post that Carlos Gomez wrote, and it was about different kinds of ideas for different spin-off games. A lot of spin-off game action happening on the top of Season 6 here, but we had two comments on our website, so you can go to anotherzeldapodcast.com and sign in, and then you can actually participate in commenting and liking and doing some of the other things that we do on the website. So we had a down the rabbit hole 33 said, because Carlos finished the article with a quote from Sheik, and of course it's the quote, "The flow of time is always cruel. Its speed seems different from each person, but no one can change it. A thing that does not change with time is the memory of younger days." And so, with that said, down the rabbit hole 33 here says, that last sentence in this blog gave me the chills. The flow of time is always cruel. I've been able to play 2D games from the late 80s and early 90s to get into them. I have been able to play, maybe the punctuation is over here. Maybe it's I haven't been able to play. I think it requires using more imagination, like a book. And I actually think that's a really good thing to point out. When the graphics are just blocks and squares, I remember playing the original Legend of Zelda, and it felt 100% real. Because I think in your imagination, you turn it into that. You know what I mean? Where here we are talking about like Kakariko Village looking literally real or whatever. I think that's a great observation, that you have to use your imagination to fill in some of those gaps. If you were able to pick, Kady, the first 2D older game, Game Boy, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, anything, which one would you think you'd be the most curious about trying first, based on what you know about Zelda so far? I'm not going to hold you to this. I'm just wondering.
Oh man!
And you may not even know all of them.
I was gonna say I don't even know if I know all of them. I watched Game Grumps, not sponsored. I watched Game Grumps play Link 2,
The Adventures of Link.
Adventures of Link. Those kind of ones. I think Link's Awakening, because I have it on the Switch, the new version.
Yeah.
But I think I'd be interested to try and play it and like how it used to be, how it was originally.
Yeah, right. I think personally, I feel that the Link's Awakening remake is so faithful, with the exception of a couple tiny details that in my opinion don't matter. For example, like on the Game Boy version, you scroll screen by screen, and on this version it kind of tracks along with Link.
Yeah.
Which some might argue it might change the experience a little bit, because it's a little easier to get disoriented when you're scrolling screen by screen, which maybe is a feature of the game, on the Game Boy. But with that said, I do feel that if someone plays the Link's Awakening remake, I feel that they could say that they've played Link's Awakening. The dialogue's exactly the same. The code, the base of the code is the same. There's a little bit of quality of life improvements. There's obviously more buttons that they can use. So instead of constantly switching your items, but Link's Awakening DX is available on the Nintendo Switch Online stuff now. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that or not. So you can play the original color version. But anyway, yeah, Link's Awakening is a great game. I highly recommend it. And even if you do start playing the HD version and someday kind of just dip into a classic one, maybe we throw it in the Game Boy player or something like that, you're still playing Link's Awakening. You're playing the remake.
I will say, I was just curious the other day because there's some people in my class, I'll say they'll play like classic Samus games and stuff on their PC or their computer. I was like, what is happening? I was able to find the first Zelda game to play for free on the computer.
So you found a ROM and then an emulator or something like that?
Well, no, like they just like transferred the controls over to like keyboard controls.
Okay.
And then you played like the regular Zelda game, and I was like, what is this?
In a browser?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Nintendo's probably not happy to hear that.
Oh no, probably not. But I was like, what in the world? Because also they didn't actually like tell you, because it's like the actual game, so we'll still say like press A, press B, and I was just like pressing on the keyboard trying to figure out what buttons go to what.
Sure.
But yeah, so that's a thing now too.
That's a thing. Yeah. In the browser, that surprises me. I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, we're running like massive spreadsheets in browsers these days. Okay, well then we had a second comment here. Frankie Peralta, that's funny, then also replied to this blog post, which we have a ton of blog posts on our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com. Frankie here says, likely, while it has been a while since the last original top-down Zelda, Link's Awakening remake sold over 60 million And that was oh wow, look at we were just talking about Link's Awakening remake.
There we go.
So they're talking about like possible spin-offs and when they'll happen. And I think Frankie speaks to something here that I also agree with. Link's Awakening remake sold over 60 million, and that was for a remake, which means there is demand for the original Zelda style. And if not for the sales of Link's Awakening, then take Metroid Dread, the first original 2D Metroid in 19 years, a game that was canceled twice and finally restored in a less represented series that barely makes money, which is true. Like, everybody loves Metroid, but weirdly Metroid games don't sell that well. It's a strange...
Yeah.
It feels like they do and should, but they actually kind of don't. They don't get those Zelda and Mario numbers, let's put it that way. I never would expect it to be announced while waiting for Tears of the Kingdom because they don't want to take eyes off of Tears of the Kingdom, though it still might not be for a while since 2D games are never in the same year as 3D ones, discounting remakes. Oh, an interesting observation. Yeah, I think Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD are inevitable on the Switch.
Yeah.
I think they're just going to get peppered into, we only get a mainline Zelda game if we're lucky every 5 years, and it's usually more like every 7.
Mm-hmm.
And so Nintendo does like to pepper in Zelda stuff in those years in between. And you'll usually find it's almost like a roll of an ocean wave. There'll be like the main, Breath of the Wild comes out, and then it's like maybe just it's like a Cadence of Hyrule, a little spin-off game,
little DLC,
and then we get a remake, and then we got Link's Awakening, and then a year or two later, then there was Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, and then that was kind of like a spin-off, and then we get an HD remake. So I think HD remakes of Wind Waker and Twilight are absolutely going to be happening in the next 3 or 4 years after Tears of the Kingdom.
The question is, which one do you think will come first, Wind Waker or Twilight Princess?
So Wind Waker came out first on the Wii U when these two came out. The thing that some people don't notice or know about is that Twilight Princess and Wind Waker use the same game engine, actually. And Twilight Princess originally was being developed as a direct sequel to Wind Waker. So the code that runs underneath them is the same engine. It's the same game, even though they look so different. Obviously, they just changed all the graphic styles and stuff. But so that's also why it was so easy to, after doing Wind Waker HD, it wasn't that difficult for Nintendo to release Twilight Princess HD because, again, same code. They didn't have to build a new engine like with Skyward Sword HD. They had to write with a new engine. So maybe there's a version where they come out together. I would be more excited about playing Twilight Princess HD than Wind Waker, just because I enjoy that game a little bit more.
I would say Twilight Princess is definitely more talked about than Wind Waker, I feel. Like, I've heard way more, at least from an outsider's perspective, I've heard and known more about Twilight Princess than I do about Wind Waker.
So, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a lot of us here on the show aren't shy about admitting that we really, really love Twilight Princess. And there's some people that really, really don't like it. And that is also just part of being a Zelda fan. There's some games that speak to some people more and less to others. I would love it. I'd love to get a Twilight Princess. I feel like we're due. Though I guess Wind Waker, I don't know. What I think the real thing we're asking here is probably what I personally hope that the next, I guess you could say, remake, not an HD release. There's a difference between a remake and an HD. Link's Awakening is a remake. Skyward Sword is an HD release where Skyward Sword's basically running the exact same code that it did on the Wii, just with with the improvements. Whereas Link's Awakening was ground up rebuilt. You know what I mean? Graphics and everything. I personally think that what Nintendo might have in their back pocket for a 40th or a 50th or a 35 or who knows what it is, probably a remake of Ocarina of Time, I think is probably going to happen before we get another mainline Zelda game after Tears of the Kingdom. Is kind of my little prediction.
Thrilled.
Yeah.
Because I haven't played it yet, but I do have Majora's Mask for my 3DS. I have not played Ocarina of Time, and it's one that is so well known and so talked about, and I want to play it so bad.
I think you must. Yeah, maybe even this season we try to get you playing it or something. Oh well, you got a few others, but yeah, I think Ocarina. I mean, Ocarina is available on the Nintendo Switch Online service right now, but I think a full and proper remake release. They're already kind of halfway there with the Ocarina of Time 3D that came out so long ago. Like that was a weird situation. I want to get us onto regions. I don't want to talk about this too long. But what's interesting about Ocarina of Time 3D is that it's almost an HD remake because it's the base code but just improved assets. So to me that's I'm getting a little in the weeds here, but the difference between a remake and an HD. HD takes a little less work, whereas a remake is almost like building a whole new game. And so my prediction is that what we've seen Nintendo do is that they'll kind of put in one HD release, they'll put in a remake in between these main lines, and then a couple spin-offs. And I'm just hoping that the remake is Ocarina of Time. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So Breath of the Wild
Yes.
regions. Is there a particular region you want to start with? You made a wonderful map here for reference. This is awesome.
I honestly just have them in alphabetical order on my notes.
Let's do it. Or
Or do you want to go like around the map?
what if I was thinking about that too, but I think I'd like to speak a little bit about the Great Plateau a little.
Okay.
Even though it's its own micro region, it's technically part of Central Hyrule. But gosh, there's a lot in Central
There's
Hyrule
a
as I look at
lot
this
in
map.
Central Hyrule.
Let's save that for the end then.
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
You know what?
I said that with so much enthusiasm. What our energy? I really sucked the energy out of the room talking about remakes and. All right.
Man.
Okay. Well, you kind of head over to Necluda.
I was gonna say, literally, for my playthrough, sorry, I went over to, I think it was Lanayru first, because Lanayru has the Zora, and that's where I just started my own.
I ended up going there first too, my first playthrough.
Yeah. So if you want, we can start with Lanayru.
The game kind of pushes you in that direction because it tries to get you over to Kakariko, and then from there. From there, you kind of just naturally start finding the water, I think. I think people just kind of go that route.
You just kind of, like, follow it. I think it's a very organic way to try and get people into that area first, because I also feel like that's the easiest Ganon and everything.
The different blights or
like
whatever.
The divine beasts. I feel like that's, like, the easier area to start with.
Yeah, I think so, too. Though the actual elephant is kind of complicated, getting out on the trunk and stuff like that. I think the easiest beast might be the lizard, honestly, for me. But anyway, we're talking about Lanayru.
But yeah, so Lanayru, the wetlands, obviously. It is the first time you really get to see, if you go there in the game first, the first time you really get to see Lizalfolds?
I say Lizophils. Whatever.
But it's the first time you see those guys, and it's also probably the first time you get introduced to the electric type characters.
Yes, which also then passively teaches you how about electricity works in water.
Yeah. And we talked about the Zora domain is there. You get to see Mipha, Prince Sidon, love of my life. And I was just so excited with the NPCs in that region. Because again, it was like the first region I went to in the game, and so just having that interaction and like getting to work alongside Prince Sidon to do different things was really interesting. That being said, though, I was scared out of my mind for the quest where you have to go collect electric arrows.
Oh, that was so cool. That was such a cool moment.
I will say, the first time I was playing it on the TV, and I have an older brother, and he was in the room watching me. And he was making fun of me the whole time because I could not figure out how to do it. And
just like sneaking around and stuff, trying to get the arrows.
I was so nervous the whole time, and he was trying to get me to mess up, and it was really funny. Because then later on, I got him to start playing Breath of the Wild, and it was like the same situation except reversed. So I was making fun of him, and he was really nervous.
He was like, "Oh, this is real."
Yeah, it's real in the moment when you play.
That was a massive moment. I want to ask. So, I'll call it a trope or maybe a theme of many Zelda games is that to get to the Zoras, this goes all the way back to the Super Nintendo game. You have to travel up the Zora River. This is like a staple in Zelda games. Twilight Princess, anytime there's Zora, you're pretty much going up a river to find them. And Breath of the Wild, I think, did a really nice job of still kind of having that going up the river experience. Where did you first sight in? One of the things that's so brilliant about Breath of the Wild is that because it's non-linear, when you do need certain story points to happen, they create all these like alternate trigger points for those story moments to happen. If you go up from the wetlands, up Zora's River, I think that's maybe what it's even called, you can meet Sidon right at the beginning of the river, and he'll kind of help you as you go up. But if you come in from the sides, wherever you trigger at another thing, then the dialogue will trigger. And one time on purpose, I actually, on a second playthrough, I went all the way up, never took the river, glided into actual Zora's domain, and that's where I met Sidon. That's where the dialogue started, because there was all these different like trigger points. Where did you first meet Sidon?
I think I met him right at the beginning. I know for sure I talked to him at the bridge. But Yeah, I think either right at the beginning or if the bridge isn't the beginning there. Because I remember him guiding me up the river and, like, him being like, come now over here. And then I'd go over there. And he's like, okay, now over on this side. And kind of just leading me along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think each one of those moments where he kind of says, come on over here, those, if you get in a certain proximity of those moments, that will trigger his introduction to you.
Okay.
It's raining in this area, so now we start learning about how climbing is difficult when things are wet.
Yeah, that frustrated me so much in this region.
Yeah, frustrated me too. But I think it's kind of supposed to, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And also, I think it's the way that they can, once you, because it's like, how do you have to actively, so going to Zora's domain and going up the river. And also having Zora's call out to you more like in a lake environment and leading you up the river is a very common thing as well. Definitely happens in Twilight Princess. Kind of a little bit of that even in Ocarina. Not exactly though, but you still go up a river. You still adventure up a river. Anyways, I realize that not only are they teaching you about how it's hard to climb when things are wet, but it's also a way to kind of keep you in the hallway of the river. So once you get down into the river, you're really just going, while it's wet, you're really just going up or down. You're going towards the Zoras or back.
Because that's the thing, too. Varuda is still acting up and spreading water everywhere to cause the flooding. So it really makes sure you can only take that path. Until then, you go into Varuda, get rid of the corruption and everything, and then it lets you, okay, now you can go up and climb if you want.
And it's just such a brilliant way of handling that mechanic of if in an open world game where the character can go wherever they want, how do you kind of, in this case, make sure or curate that they're having I'll call it like a hallway experience, because you want them to emotionally feel like they're traveling up the river and not just jumping up on the mountains on the side and like gliding in or something. When I did do the time where I glided into Zora's domain and met Sidon in Zora's domain, I was actively trying to not get into the river. You know what I mean? So any normal player, they're going to fall into that trough and have that experience. And it's a great experience having him pop up and help you out. You feel like you're getting closer, going over the one bridge, bigger bridge, the river, it gets bigger below you. It's cool. And then when you actually hit that proper entrance bridge to Zora's domain, it's epic, isn't it?
It's gorgeous. Yeah. Because I went in really blind with Zelda, so I didn't even know who the Zora were. So when I first saw Prince Sidon, I was like, this is so cool. There's something that's not a Hylian.
We say Hylian.
Hylian.
Yeah.
That's not a monster trying to attack me. Like, this is another, like, species of people
that
I can just interact with. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And so then when I went into the domain and saw, like, oh, this is, like, a different species of people. Like, their whole towns and everything are built differently. It was so cool. And I think that's something that the games did really well carrying throughout. That you really feel like you are in a different place that was built for different people.
Oh, that's a very good point. You know, in our previous episode, back in episode 2, I was politely ragging on Zora's domain a little bit when I was saying, like, oh, but it doesn't feel like, how do the people actually live there? You know what I mean? But I think I've realized now, basically, based on you saying that maybe, you know, Zora are different. They are fish people. They may not necessarily sleep in beds. They might sleep in the water. They live in the water. You know what I mean?
There's that thing in Zora's domain where they have, it's literally a kiddie pool where
right.
all the kids sleep, and it's just a pool of water.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My cat is freaking out. I'm not sure. He's like, maybe there's a stray cat outside that he's trying to track through the windows, but he's like running all around. Anyways, so there might be, we got a little distracted there. That's a great point. So Zora's domain is not called Zora Village.
Yeah,
Zora's domain. It's
Zora's
more like
domain.
A palace, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so really where the Zora live is probably around it and under it and all of that. I'm sorry for being a little hard on Zora's domain in episode 2. I just realized that. Yeah, because they're probably living up in the waterfalls up above and everything. It's just all over the place. That's their homes, are the bodies of water. What are some other standout things about Lanayru?
I wanted to say there's a well, first off, there's the Spring of Wisdom, which is really cool. But there's a kind of side quest that you can do. There's like a little female child Zora that's like singing a little song, and it's a shrine quest to find. It's the Veiled Falls shrine quest.
Wow.
And that frustrated me way more than it should have because I'm still new to the game. But it's where you have to have like the Zora armor, and you like go up this little waterfall, jump down, and there's like a little platform at the bottom of it, and you have to jump down, glide down, and then attack right before you hit the bottom.
Yes.
I died so many times trying to do that. I could not get it. Obviously, I did eventually, but I don't know what was wrong with me. It was just so difficult for me to do.
I think I kind of like slowly glided down and kind of lined up, and then I would attack down. Is that kind of the strategy you took too?
I tried it, and I still, like, I think I would wait too long, or I wouldn't wait long enough. I couldn't get the timing down.
Is that with the Zora trident spear thing, or you do it with any weapon?
I want to say you can do it with any weapon, but it might just be the Zora spear.
Zora spear, yeah, I always forget what they're called. Super cool, yeah. There's a little bit of, as I'm looking at your map here, I'm remembering there's a little bit of there's like that wind, the ocean comes in, outside of Zora's domain, there's a little bit of Lanayru that's then over on the ocean side, and there's a lot of windy water and stuff like that. There's some shrine quests there and some puzzles. And actually, it's interesting because with Lanayru, this ocean part, the far, I'll call it east, if northeast, southwest is just how the map is represented, the far east part of Lanayru is outside of Zora's domain, and most of the time you don't actually get to it from Zora's domain. Most of the time you're finding, because really after you've dealt with the lake and everything, you kind of go in a different direction. For me, I usually got to this eastern part of Lanayru from the region below, going out around the beach. Necluda, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I could be wrong, it might not be Necluda, it might be a different area, but I want to say that's where the Cass, there's a quest that Cass has where you get to find, they say it's like treasures from the last hero, basically, is kind of how they say it. And I always thought that was really cool because I was like, is that like the previous Link left that, or is it another hero?
Well, I think one thing that's interesting about Cass is that I don't think Cass recognizes Link as being Link.
Yeah.
Right? So Cass might be referring to Link from
himself.
100 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it might be just the in-game Link from 100 years ago.
That would be so cool. I never even thought about that. Man.
Oh wow! I'm looking at the map here. Also in Lanayru is that weird little the ruins canyon that you go through. I'm seeing it on the map here, which usually you get to that from Kakariko Village, but it's technically in a different region. And then of course there's the mountain. I don't know if that's called Lanayru Mountain. There is a Lanayru Mountain, but I don't think it's in Lanayru.
Oh.
I think it's like up in the. I feel like it's over in Hebra or something. I don't know. Anyways.
But on the topic of Necluda.
Sure, let's travel down.
There's so much in Necluda. Necluda is normally where you kind of end up first after you get the paraglider from the old man.
If you literally travel to the dot on your map,
yeah,
you end up in Kakariko Village.
That's where you go to Necluda. Because when you glide down, the first place you go is Fort Hateno, which is the old destroyed fort.
Yeah.
And you go under, and there is like a man there. I think he's like studying. He's studying something. It's a side quest. And there's like tons of different things there. I really thought Fort Hateno was kind of cool, and seeing all the different ruins throughout. And then you if you really went in and explored, you could find like treasure and different things like that. Just beware of the bokoblins.
And the larger story there is when you think about where Hateno is, the village is located. It's like the one safe. It's kind of talked about by the NPCs as being like the one safe place in Hyrule, the one place where it still is safe, that survived the calamity.
Yeah.
And it survived that calamity because of Fort Hateno. And we literally see a wall, and we literally see guardians pushed up against it, ruins of guardians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can see the history of the battle.
I was terrified walking past all those guardians first time, because I think there's like maybe one if you get close enough that it turns on, but the rest of them you can just get spare parts, and it's just for the look. But to this day, I'm so nervous walking past them.
And they're peppered about in the field. You can see that whole field where you basically learn how to ride a horse for the first time. If you really pay attention to it, you realize that this was a battlefield. You know what I mean? It was a big battlefield. And also, I know we're heading towards Hateno, or maybe even Kakariko, but before you get into any of this, before you even get to the field, of course, you travel through, most likely travel through the Dueling Peaks, which I think we should point that out too.
Dueling Peaks. If you go through this way, it's Dueling Peaks stable is probably going to be the first stable you see. And then you get to learn how to get horses, which again, I was so thrilled that I got to have a horse. And you learn how to do all that kind of stuff. And
this is the first Zelda where you have to like actually get the horses. Every other Zelda game, it is Epona, and you just receive Epona at a story moment. You know what I mean? Like, you got Epona now, kid. Yeah. So this one is one where you actually have to earn the horses, and it's very cool.
Yeah, I like that all the horses are kind of different in their own way. Like, there are, like, different breeds of horses.
Mm-hmm.
So some have higher stamina, some have higher health. You can, like, bond easier with other ones.
I found charts on the internet where the coloring and the patterning of the horses actually represent what their different stats are.
Yeah, I remember looking that up so I could try and get, like, the best horse.
Right.
But I didn't realize that until I caught, like, 2 or 3 of them.
Well, also, like the speckled horses, we will say, the two-tone speckly horses, they have the slowest stats, but they're also the easiest to calm down once you've jumped on them.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want a better horse, you have to be better at calming it down once you jump on, or have more stamina, I guess. So anyway, we go through Dueling Peaks. Dueling Peaks, I don't know if you know this or not, but it's a reference to the artwork of the original Legend of Zelda game.
I did not know that.
It's a direct reference. So there's a graphic, which I don't have right now, but I'll show it to you when we're done recording. It was a drawing in like the first page or two of the very first Legend of Zelda game, and it's Link on a cliff, we'll just say, or a little bit like in Breath of the Wild, like kind of like a jutting out cliff a little bit when he first comes out of his shrine of sleep or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And Link's looking across Hyrule, and there's a mountain that's split in this drawing. And so the designers of Breath of the Wild have openly and clearly spoken about how the Dueling Peaks and their location to the Shrine of Resurrection is a direct reference to that piece of artwork.
That's so cool.
It is super cool. And the Dueling Peaks, I don't know if, for me, it feels like a single mountain that got split, but Dueling Peaks implies 2 mountains that somehow have fallen in towards each other, but I think it kind of looks like a mountain that got split.
Yeah, me too, because it looks like there's like a little ravine through it.
Yeah, there's a literal river that goes through it, and it's just a ton of fun. And it's a little. The first time, you probably experience your first actual shrine tower before you get to Dueling Peaks, if you're heading towards
the one in the
Necluda.
water.
Yep. And so you kind of learn what the shrine towers do, even though you kind of had one in Great Plateau. You deal with your first couple bokoblin camps and stuff like that, and you start to realize, okay, that's how this is how this game's going to be. And going through the Dueling Peaks was it was not creepy, but I definitely had like vibes walking through that the first time,
especially the ravine area in between the 2 peaks. I was so nervous something was going to jump out, or
the sun never really gets down in there organically. And so you head through, and then all of a sudden you open up to the field that we were just talking about, the battlefield. And so what else could we talk about? We've got Kakariko, we have Hateno. The horse stable, or the horse range is out here. Oh, wow.
Yeah, talking about Kakariko and Hateno and all those, Kakariko, you get to meet Pura and Impa.
Yes.
Which is really cool. Which I wanted to ask, because I don't have as much knowledge, but is Pura and Impa, are they in previous Zelda games?
Impa is a standard. Impa is in every single Zelda game almost. If Link and Zelda are in a game, usually Impa is there too.
Okay.
Pura is a new character for Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
But Impa, in the original Legend of Zelda game, Breath of the Wild does a lot of references to the very first one, so there's a lot of nostalgia there. But in the very first Legend of Zelda game, not in game, but in the lore in the manual, Impa is Zelda's nurse, and Impa travels to find Link to help on her dying breath or whatever, is asking Link to go save Zelda. And so that's how Impa was created. Impa then is usually recognized as being Zelda's right-hand man, so to speak, or Zelda's nurse or something like that, Zelda's caretaker. Raised Zelda, because there's never a mother character for some reason. There's a king, but there's never a queen. Not sure why, but Impa usually is that role. However, in Ocarina of Time, Impa was reimagined as Sheikah, and Impa was like the head guard for the royal family, therefore the kind of a nurse figure to Zelda.
Yeah.
Ever since Ocarina of Time release order, not timeline order, but release order. Ever since Ocarina of Time, Impa basically has become a pseudo nurse figure, but really like a spiritual leader and protector of Zelda.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I obviously knew her from Breath of the Wild, but then when Age of Calamity came out, you got to see her role alongside Zelda, and she was Zelda's best friend. She was her kind of right-hand man, and she was also a Sheikah warrior.
Yes.
And so that was really cool to see.
You may have met Impa in Skyward Sword already and not known it.
Really?
I just
Eyebrow
wave my
wiggle.
eyebrows. Yeah, I know that I didn't notice that I met Impa the first time I met Impa in Skyward Sword, and then you'll meet maybe a different version of Impa, and then you'll put it all together.
Okay.
So maybe you have experienced Impa twice, but yes, the Impa's representation in Breath of the Wild is awesome because it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of a play on both that nurse archetype and the Sheikah archetype, because she is old, and when Zelda, in the original game,
Yeah.
Impa was an old nurse. She is wise, she is Sheikah, so that all sticks and lines up. And it is the one thing that I really do enjoy about, not the one thing, but a thing that I do really enjoy about Age of Calamity is that we do get to see Impa in her prime the way we see her in Ocarina of Time and some of these other games.
Yeah, that was one of the big selling points for me on Age of Calamity, was seeing all of these characters that it's obviously been 100 years. They look very different. Seeing them back when the war was happening in their prime, doing their thing.
Oh my gosh, I just realized something. The Breath of the Wild Zelda and the Breath of the Wild Impa started close to being the same age.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't this, like, motherly figure. They were friends, you're right.
Yeah, they were best friends. And that was, like, a big thing.
Yeah, and maybe Impa was a little bit older, but basically they were friends. So that's a very new interpretation of Impa then. If we're looking at the lore, it's a new interpretation. Meeting Impa as an older figure in Breath of the Wild is a little bit more on brand. But anyway, yeah. So it's super cool. She's awesome. I think she's great.
She's great.
Yeah.
And then obviously you got Link's house, which there's a lot of debate whether that was Link's house previous to the Calamity as well.
Link's house in Kakariko Village?
Or no. In
Hateno.
Hateno, yeah.
Yeah, Hateno, yes.
A lot of people think that, because they make it a big deal of this specific house and saying, like, oh, this has been here for a really long time, we're finally tearing it down, and then Link just coming out saying he wants to buy it.
Yep.
And then being like, okay, that's kind of weird, why are you buying this house? So a lot of people, and I like this theory as well, think that this was Link's house before the Calamity happened.
That was my interpretation.
Yeah.
There's a few hints. Like, if you read between the lines of what Bolson says, there are some hints about it. The owner hasn't been here for 100 years, or there's something almost that direct. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, I'll buy my house back, please.
Yeah, and I think that with us as the players, we can just be like, oh, it's Link's house, buy it. But I like the kind of what it kind of puts in the game, where it's like maybe Link kind of has like, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a deja vu, kind of like a, this is familiar, I should get this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you can also, because I also play games, I like to add in some story myself to it. Just
some headcanon?
Some headcanon, just some stories myself, which I think is fun, depending on how far along you are on getting your memories back. You can kind of put that where you want, and kind of add it to your story, I guess.
The first time I played Breath of the Wild, I completely by accident, but I'm grateful for this, completely by accident, found all the memories in a tremendously interesting order.
Yeah.
So it was like I accidentally found one of the chronologically like last ones very early on, and then Zelda was stressed about something, but then Zelda was fine, and then it was the way I experienced the memory flashbacks was captivating.
Yeah.
But it can be totally different. However, people get the literal memories.
Yeah, I was also I got them like in random orders, and I remember when I finally got them all, I like went on YouTube and found someone who put them in chronological order. And I watched like a 20-minute or however long video of them playing like a movie, and I thought it was great. Yeah,
there's even master cuts now of like including even the Age of Calamity stuff. You can like watch like the Zelda movie, and it's almost like an hour long of cutscenes. And all the DLC. Actually, I think the one that I ended up watching was the one that was Breath of the Wild cutscenes with the DLC cutscenes, and it all kind of comes together. But I think, is there anything else you'd like to say about Hateno? Otherwise, I think we should move on.
I did want to say one last thing about Necluda in general.
Oh, okay.
The Spring of Wisdom, there's a really cool quest there where there's the dragon Nidra, I think, where the dragon's corrupted, and you have to go around and like hop up in the air and utilize the mechanic of when you pull your bow when you're falling, the time slows down.
Yes.
So you can shoot the corrupted eyes, and then if you like get rid of all the corruption, the dragon gives you a little scale.
I love that. Almost, some people call it a boss fight. I don't know if it is or not, but it's a very cool moment when you're up in the air flying all over the place. And as I look at the map here, that might be technically in Lanayru a little bit. I think you enter it from Necluda, but the actual mountain might be in Lanayru.
Yeah,
But they're
you're
adjacent.
right.
They're right next to each other.
It's so hard trying to figure out where the lines are drawn.
But all three dragons are very cool. I have a little thing about a dragon in a minute here if we go on to Faron.
Yeah.
Faron. But yeah, that's an awesome epic. When you see the mountain and you're like, is the mountain breathing? Wait, is that a dragon on the mountain? Very cool. And then it takes off and starts flying all over the place.
Yeah, but we can move on to Faron.
Let's do it. Faron Woods. Faron sounds so familiar to me. I think Faron pops up in other Zelda games for sure. Pardon me. So Faron's a special area for me. I don't know. I almost said emotionally, but that's like so dumb. I
dumb.
just love the jungle aesthetic in Faron. Oh, Faron Woods. Oh, Faron Woods from Twilight Princess. That's where it is.
There you go.
Link's Awakening was my first Zelda game that I ever played. The normal black and white one on Game Boy. And when I'm in the Faron region, it just feels like I'm like spiritually in Link's Awakening. The lush, massive leaves and jungle vibes, and then even Lurelin Village just feels like very Link's Awakening to me. Feels like it's this tiny little village on the edge of the ocean. But and there's a lot of Zonai stuff in this region too. Actually, a lot of the old. Oh, and isn't there another? Skyward Sword, something of wisdom, something of power, like.
Oh,
isn't there another?
in Faerun? I don't think in Faerun. I know the Spring of Power is in Akala.
It's the snakehead part of the river. There's something back there, but anyway, maybe it's just a shrine. It might just be a shrine, but you kind of travel up the river and you find you get a hint where there's a shrine at the mouth of the snake, and you're kind of like, what the heck's the mouth of the snake? But it's the literal river. It looks like a mouth.
Yeah.
And there's something back there. I thought there was one of those like fountain of wisdom or whatever.
It's
I don't know.
either
I
a
don't have it
shrine or like a chest with a good item in it.
Sure. Well, then of course, then we go to Faron. Then as we get deeper into Faron, then we find the horse stable where we have those epic waterfalls coming down, and this is also where we have our first experience with. I think is it Farouche is the yellow dragon? I think the electricity dragon.
I want to say.
I don't have
yes.
this in my notes or anything.
I don't know the names of the dragons, but that is when we meet that dragon.
The yellow one.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you go all the way up, especially if you have your Zora armor, you can travel up the waterfalls all the way up to the top. There's like this special little spring, and that's where the dragon, I guess you could say, spawns from.
Oh, okay.
So the red dragon comes out of the sky and goes back up into the sky. I wonder what happens to the blue dragon after you unfreeze it. Oh, it goes down to Lake Hylia. It comes out of Lake Hylia, doesn't it? Well, I think Farouche, the yellow dragon, just is this teeny tiny little spring up on the top of the waterfalls, and that's where Farouche comes out. And then, of course, flies down over the big, huge bridges on your way to Lurelin Village. And if you're needing to get some dragon scales, it's this opportunity where you're really close to where the dragon comes out, and you can kind of wait there a little bit and then go for it instead of having to find him. But it's all very epic. All of Faron is very epic in my opinion.
Yeah, that's really interesting because Faron, I was kind of like, it's a place for me.
Wow. Yeah, sure.
Like it wasn't. I mean, I love.
Respect that.
Yeah, I love every place in Breath of the Wild. I like how different it was, but I felt like there wasn't as much to do as other areas. I will say one side quest that I really enjoyed in that area, I think it was called Thunder Magnet. But it's where they have a stable and they're like, we keep getting hit by lightning and we don't know what's happening. And so what was interesting to me, I never even tried to climb the stables before. And then I think I could not figure out what was happening. And so I went onto IGN, again, not sponsored. I went onto their site to find a walkthrough to try and figure out how to do this. And then they're like, climb the thing, and I'm like, you can climb this?
Well, and because the graphics make it look like it's fabric, it is easy to deduce that you can't climb it.
Yeah, I figured I would just slide right off.
Right.
But then I climbed up, and they have the axe on top that you can just throw down, and then you get a free axe.
Yep.
But that also introduced me. I think it was then that I got introduced to the mechanic of. Actually, it was either then or in Zora Domain. But the fact that if you wear anything metal, you will get struck by lightning.
Right. Yeah.
Because I didn't. Obviously, that makes sense. But I didn't think that was going to be a game mechanic that they put in until they did it.
Yeah, very cool. I wonder if you could even grab this axe just using your magnesis too, or maybe it's too far away.
Yeah. You have to get up a certain height to grab it with the magnesis.
Got it. Cool. Nice. I don't know if there's much. I mean, as I'm looking at the map here that you made, I'm seeing there's a little bit of Faron to the west. Nothing about that area. Oh, Did we? Is that where Ganon's horse is? Am I mistaken?
Oh, no, that is, wait, is it? Wait, I think I have it written somewhere. Because I remember really liking that horse.
I think.
Is it there?
Well, there's that great grassy plains area. So it's in your map here as I look. See this little channel that's going up and down? I think that's where you find the giant horse. But what's weird is the rest of the map looks a little strange to me. Because you're coming over from Lake Hylia.
Yeah,
well, we'll
maybe
see.
It is there. Because I guess in my notes I only put down where Zelda's horse is.
I actually have not found Zelda's horse yet, and so
Really?
I want to know.
Oh, well, I'll tell you.
When we get we've done 3 zones. Let's
Okay.
do the next one. I guess we're moving on to Gerudo.
Yeah, let's do Gerudo.
And then we'll take a break and we'll do the other 4.
Okay, cool. Gerudo, fun place. It's the first place that has level 1 heat resistance and level 1 cold resistance. Because during the day you have to be dressing in your 1 Gerudo clothes, and then at night you have to be bundled up because it gets really cold in the desert. And that was a mechanic that I always thought was really cool because it acts like the actual desert.
Right, yeah. Deserts actually get cold at night.
Yeah. Before going into Gerudo town, you get to go to Karakara Bazaar, which until writing it down, I thought it was Karkar Bazaar, and then I realized there was another A at the
Karakara?
end, and I didn't realize.
Karakara?
Karakara.
Okay.
Which, again, going back to me playing Skyward Sword now, I saw Karakara Bazaar is a place on the island. Yeah. It's the place where you go in and get all your stuff before going down to the mainlands.
Wait, the actual big tent market is called
Karkara?
it's called
Karakara Bazaar. Or Bazaar, Karakara.
No way, that's
yeah,
cool.
I was like, this is so cool. So there's a little fun fact.
Wow.
But Karakara Bazaar is where you get the Gerudo armor, so you can actually go into Gerudo Town. And Gerudo Town is so cool. There's the sand seal races, which is so fun, and I like there's a dialogue interaction that you can have with someone that sells the seals or like lets you like rent them out, and all of Link's things are pun related and coming back, so it's like seal you later and like those kind of things, and no matter what you pick, she's always like, oh, okay, well, that's not funny.
Yeah, I'm realizing as we talk about it, like, some of Link's dialogue, like, it's funny, some characters like aren't into it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, some
It does
people
happen once in a
really
while.
like Link, and some people are like tolerating him. And I think that's really fun.
Maybe there is more truth to the whole like, excuse me, princess.
Yeah.
Maybe he actually is a bit of a snot sometimes, who knows?
Yeah. And then you have Urbosa, which, beautiful, wonderful, magnificent. And Riju, which I think Riju is such a cool character.
Yeah.
Her being, I think she's like, 15 in it? And she's like running this whole place. And she is doing it magnificently.
I think so.
She's doing it great. And I think it's just such a cute little moment for her when she gets the helmet that Urbosa, the Thunder Helm, and whenever she puts it on, it like tilts sideways because it's way too big for her because she's so little. Because it's funny because she's like smaller. I want to say she's smaller than Link is, or maybe
I think
his
she is
height.
shorter, I think.
Which is really funny seeing her compared to all of the other Gerudo, which are like 8 feet tall Amazonian warrior type people. Which is really cool. I just think it's great.
Another thing is that I'm not probably for game reasons, but you can't bring horses into the Gerudo Desert.
I never knew that.
It's real subtle, but the way the level design works is the only way you can really get a horse in is through that little canyon as you're coming in. There's even a stable in that canyon. But basically, I think they put like a little bit of a wall that you have to jump down to get into the desert.
Right.
And you can't take the horse over that. I'm wondering if it's because they want the desert to feel bigger, so you have to move through it slower. Like if you're on the horse, will you be able to move through the desert because there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors there to make the desert feel, it's big. It's a big part of the map, but they make it feel really big.
Yeah, especially because of the different sandstorms that come through.
I was just
that
gonna
get you lost. And it could also be a good way to try and make you want to do that side quest to get the sand boots. So you can move around easier.
And then the alternate form of transportation, though, is the sand seals.
Yeah, and then that also comes into play for you can get practice doing it before the Riju thing to get into Vanaboris.
Absolutely.
Which I had a very hard time.
The camel? Or the final the blight. That one was tricky.
Not the blights, because I'll tell you something in a second, but just the practice of getting to Vanaboris, because you would have to like glide in and out and not get struck, and that was like really hard to follow.
Oh yeah, I remember on my second playthrough I had a horrible time with that. I just couldn't get the timing right. But the first time I must have gotten it right. I don't know.
But I'm gonna come out and say this right off the bat.
Okay.
I used walkthroughs for like all of the divine beasts.
Okay.
I got lost so quickly, and I'm a walkthrough person.
Once in the divine beasts, or to like unlock the divine beasts
Once
you're using
in them.
walkthrough. Once in them, got it.
I'm a walkthrough person.
Sure,
I
no
think
judgment.
It's great. But
No judgment, cheater. I'm joking. Everyone has the right to experience games how they want.
But through doing that, I found out there's a bug with that beast. Where I think it's like if you hit it a certain way or do like a certain thing, then he becomes paralyzed that you can really just like take him out.
Oh, interesting.
And there, when we get to Akala, I'll tell you a really, really broken bug with that calamity, which got it so I didn't even get hit once with that one. But
wow,
I will wait until we get there.
We have the big snowy mountains in Gerudo, technically.
Yeah.
You know?
We do.
I think that's actually the highest part of. I think it's even taller than Death Mountain, but I think it's the highest part on the map.
I want to say too. One of my favorite places in Gerudo is the Yiga clan hideout.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that was such a fun mission, and it was so silly, dropping bananas everywhere.
We had a Yiga clan deep dive episode just before this episode. Dan and I did a whole Yiga clan thing.
I loved it. I love Master Koga?
Koga, yeah.
Yeah, Master Koga.
We say Koga, yeah.
Okay. I think his character is so funny, and I know it wouldn't make sense, but I kind of want more of him just because he's so weird. And I don't know how he got so many people to follow him into everything.
Yeah, we learned a lot about it, Dan and I, when we were doing our research, and the whole story goes back thousands and thousands of years, actually.
Oh, wow.
Like 10,000 years, but Koga, the Yiga being recognized in a Zelda game, this is the first game that they were ever invented from first time we ever met the Yiga. Mm-hmm. Their lore goes back, but this is like the first game they've been in. And Koga, they had been slowly forming, but Koga was the one that finally said, guess what, we're called Yiga, we're doing X, Y, and Z, and we're a militant group now, and we're all formed up. So he had some kind of
leadership skills.
Culty leadership skills, exactly.
No, I thought that was such a funny battle. I enjoyed it. I got a laugh out of it.
It was super spooky. Walking up to, if you take the actual cavern to go to the Yiga clan, with all the Yiga fabric masking over the Sheikah statues, the little frogs, so creepy.
Yeah, and that was the thing, because I went in and I was fighting. They're like the big guys that have the swords that can do like wind
blade
and stuff.
masters or something, swift blades.
They're really hard. And so I had to obviously go through. I keep saying obviously. I'm so sorry. Make a t-shirt out of that.
All right,
Put
no
obviously
problem.
on it.
Yeah, sounds good.
But
obviously we'll do that.
When you go through, you go against these guys, and they're just different hard people to beat. And so when you come up to Koga, it's like, oh my gosh, he's like the big boss at the end. This is going to be so hard. And then I was just dying of laughter. I'm like, how did they ramp up to this? But I really liked that they did that.
I think the depiction there, my interpretation of what's being depicted is that Koga probably is very charismatic.
But he's not very strong.
Yeah, not necessarily the best Yiga.
And that's the thing. He has those leadership qualities of everyone likes him. He's very charismatic. He's a very funny guy. But take away his army, he's just a dude.
He's just a dude but then you've got that right-hand man character, and I can't remember his name.
Terrifying.
Kush or Samoosh or something. Yeah, and actually that character plays a larger role in Age of Calamity, too.
I was going to say, that's when I really was like, oh my gosh, this guy's scary, when he shows up in Age of Calamity.
Let's see, any other standouts? We have a temple. We have one of the labyrinths is in this zone. I don't actually remember fully what you get in there. And then we have the 7 goddesses, and then the 8th goddess is up in the mountains in this.
I do want to say,
what do you got?
A side quest, Test of Will. This was a really fun one. It's outside of Gerudo when you're with, I want to say it is Gorons, and it's where you have to withstand the heat.
Yes.
And so like the first time, it's like you can just wear like because you can't have any equipment to deal with this. So the first time it's like, okay, it's hot, but you can deal with it. The second time you have to like sneakily take a fire resistant potion or just have a ton of hearts in order to withstand the heat.
Yeah.
And that was another quest that I thought was really silly and really fun because they have like the little fun music going on in the background.
Totally. Yeah. You find them just kind of randomly in one of those caverns, don't you?
Yeah,
the
they just come out of nowhere.
And obviously that's oh, no, I'm saying obviously. Yeah, that is a mechanic. I think they clearly are trying to teach you like to use a potion or Breath of the Wild's very good at not to beat the game, but requiring and reminding you of all the different mechanics that exist, and sometimes requiring you to do some of those things for these shrine quests.
Kind of off topic, but on topic with that. I don't know what her YouTube name is, so I'm so sorry. But she has a clip of her playing Breath of the Wild, and she finds like one of the shrines you should have played first. Really late in the game, and she like did not realize you could dodge in the game
until playing
parry or something. Yeah, until playing that, and she's like, I should have found this.
I know one person who accidentally never interfaced with that main Deku guy that levels up your.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Oh my gosh.
Hetsu.
I love Hetsu.
Sure, I like him too. But I know some person who played all of Breath of the Wild, not even knowing that Hetsu was a thing that existed.
Oh.
Because he just missed him on the way to Kakariko or something.
Yeah, because also it's a thing, like, if you don't talk to him there enough, then he stays there. He doesn't show up.
Right.
In the...
Lost Woods?
Thank you. In the Lost Woods. Which is good that he shows up there, because I remember I, like, had all these Korok seeds, so I, like, kept doing it, and then he's like, okay, gotta go, and I was like, no, wait, I need more.
yeah, you see him a few places on the map, and that's what, meeting him in Kakariko, or on the way to Kakariko is what triggers it. Well, anything else? I mean, there's a lot, as I look at the map here, I'm realizing there's actually a lot in this region. There's a lot going on.
It's also, I think the only place you find Moldugas.
Yes, definitely. I actually love fighting them. It's
Me
so
too.
epic and fun.
I think it's really fun.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to get in the swing of it. But, that's kind of it for me on Gerudo. Do you want to move on to Hebra?
Well, I think we should, but why don't we go to break and then we'll come back and do the final four.
Yeah.
There's also the twin peaks is what my brain is making me want to say. Death Rock or whatever it is. There's a reference in Gerudo, which is the original. There's two towers that are referencing the original game as well, which is where Ganon is and all that kind of stuff. And I think that one of the main actual towers is on. Why cannot remember? I'm so blanking on this. I'll just call it Death Rock.
Okay.
But it's not
Death
that.
Rock?
It's something else. All right, we'll go to break. Maybe I'll even research it real quick, and we'll come back and do these other regions.
All right.
All right, cool.
It's the first day of school, and I'm walking around downtown Chicago with hundreds of other students. Everyone's getting back from summer break, and you can tell that they're happy to see each other after a couple months. For me, however, it's been a little longer. Hi, I'm David, and I want to introduce you to Returning Student, a documentary podcast that I've been making about my return to a college that I left 20 years ago. I'm back in the same city, at the same school, the same student ID number. Everything else feels completely different. My fellow classmates are literally half my age. My professors work in my industry. Sometimes I wonder why I've come back at all. But then I get the opportunity to sit down with one of my professors and have a conversation with them, which usually yields a little bit of wisdom. You can find the show on all major podcast providers, as well as our website, returningstudentpodcast.com. A lot has changed over the past 2 decades. Hello there, listeners. David here. You know, the whole team at Another Zelda Podcast appreciates every bit of support our listeners give. And if you'd like to enjoy some extra content, we invite you to consider becoming a patron through our Patreon page. Sword members get a thank you on our website, as well as monthly digital wallpapers for all your devices, and the opportunity to participate in an annual meetup on Discord with the AZP team. White Sword members will get everything the Sword tier gets, and also they'll get access to episodes a week early, as well as bonus episodes that we record specifically for Patreon. A new thing we're doing is monthly Discord meetups where we'll play trivia and hang out with you as well. Lastly, and this is our most popular tier, actually, the Magical Sword level, which includes, of course, everything from the previous 2 levels, but also gives supporters access to behind-the-scenes videos that we produce and behind-the-scenes extended video versions of every episode. Thank you so much for your time. Let's get back to the show. And if you're already on Patreon, we are so grateful that you're helping us keep Another Zelda podcast vibrant.
All right, we are back. And Kady, I can't believe it. It's called Spectacle Rock. This is like a famous... There's these two rocks that are like twin rocks in the original Legend of Zelda. It's where level 9 is. And they're also referenced in A Link to the Past. There's kind of like a Ganon connection to all of these things. And there are also... Spectacle Rock is also in the Gerudo region, which is just kind of a little bit of an Easter egg. And I do think that one of the Sheikah map towers is on one of those rocks, the Spectacle Rock. But anyway.
Okay, cool.
Cool, huh?
Yeah, cool to find out.
I don't know why I was thinking Death Rock, because I think I was thinking of Death Mountain, because it gets a little blurry in the original Legend of Zelda. Spectacle Rock and Death Mountain are all kind of similar things, but we got there. So where are we moving on to next?
Let's go to Hebra.
Ooh, let me look.
It's gonna be that top
I'd call
left.
it Hebra, yeah.
Hebra. This is where you find out you have to have level 2 cold resistance. So you have
Look at you with your notes. This is
I know,
great.
my notes. Thank you, everyone online, for helping me. But so you get to go to the Rito village for the first time, and that's where you can find stuff to have that level 2 cold resistance if you don't want to keep taking potions.
I see.
And it's a really cool outfit. I really like it, but I do get a laugh out of some memes people make. Because obviously, to have that level 2, you have to have all 3 pieces equipped.
Right.
But the top piece is just a feather in Link's hair.
Yeah, it's like 2 feathers.
Yeah. So people make a lot of jokes about it of like, oh, I'm freezing. Hold on, let me just like put my feather in my hair.
No, I'm good.
But talking about Rito Village, you get to meet Teba, which is like the new champion coming up, which is really cool. And then Revali.
Yes.
With... I didn't put down the name of this beast, but
it might be Varuda or something. Let me just check real quick.
Varuda is the Gerudo one.
I constantly forget the names.
Varuda is
it might be Vamedo. Vamedo might be the bird.
Vamedo, yes, that sounds right. But you get to meet Revali. What were your thoughts on Revali as a character?
My thought was, why did they put Falco from Star Fox in Legend of Zelda? Is what my thought was. It's almost like the same attitude and everything.
Yeah.
But I get it. Revali is. I always accidentally say Rivaldi. Revali is what he is and needs to be, or whatever in the game. Like, he's supposed to be annoying. He's supposed to be arrogant. The voice acting was fine to portray that. But on the whole, I wasn't like particularly moved or offended by.
I was gonna say, I just. Like, Mipha was, like, a really sweet character. I'm blanking on everyone's name.
Urbosa?
Urbosa was, like, this really cool, like, motherly figure, really strong.
Yeah.
Daruk was, like, uncle energy, like, best friend.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then you got Revali, and he's just kind of there.
I guess you need you don't need it, but I guess, obviously,
the kind of Raphael character.
Yeah. That's a really good way of putting
it.
The Raphael character of the Turtles, and... definitely thought he was gonna be and should have been the champion, the Link.
Yeah, I think I would have liked it more if they explored it a bit more, maybe with a few more memories with him, because it was just kind of like, I should have been champion, and like that was kind of the end of it, instead of like, oh, I trained really hard and you just got this and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be a little bit more nuanced storytelling.
Yeah, there would be a bit more feeling there and like connection to the character, but there are some people that really like him, like a friend of mine back home that's like his favorite character for some reason.
Sure.
Sure, go ahead. Just wasn't the biggest fan.
Yeah, he's kind of the jock or whatever. Like, if I remember the cut scenes with Mipha were actually touching. Like, I even got like a little misty eyed with those scenes. And then Daruk, you're absolutely right. And Urbosa's super cool.
Urbosa kind of like filled in that mom role for Zelda.
Yes, you're right.
Which that was really nice to see.
And there's a little more of that in the DLC cutscenes too.
But yeah, moving on from that though, this is also the first area I found out where you can wear fire weapons on your back to stay warm.
Yes.
Which is a mechanic I didn't realize was a thing really until there's a shrine quest where you have to go in and like carry ice to a certain place, and I was getting so frustrated.
Did you have a fire weapon?
Yeah, I was getting so frustrated because it kept melting, and I was looking up everything online, and no one was saying anything about it. I'm like, is my game just broken? And then I was like, wait a minute, and I unequipped it, and that's when I realized that was a thing, and I was like, there's no way. That's such a cool little programmed in.
I mean, what I'm realizing now is maybe you should wear like an ice weapon when you're in the desert trying to bring the big ice block back to Gerudo Town.
I'm curious about doing that because I've never tried it.
I'm in a Master Quest play mode or a Master mode playthrough right now, and I think when I hit that mission, I'm gonna give it a try.
Yeah, do that and like
report
me know.
back.
Yeah, report
Copy.
back.
Got
Go
it.
and report back.
Sounds good.
And then with that too, there's the freezing water that they introduce you to, where like the minute you drop into the water, it like starts taking your health down.
Oh yeah, and then you have to try to get underneath that one area to get to the one shrine. Oh, that was so fun.
That shrine was so stressful. So that was terrifying. And then finally, like, there's like the snowball bowling mini game, which is really fun and a really good way to get rupees if you like look up online like I did the strategy to do so. And
no, I don't know. I didn't know if there was a strategy. I'm not a look up onliner kind of guy.
Oh, okay.
Like I try to have the game be the authentic experience unless I'm truly stuck, meaning like, okay, now I've been doing this, I've given this 5 or 6 tries, I've been doing this for a couple hours total over the course of the week, maybe this is one thing I'll skip over, but usually I try to just kind of play the game.
Yeah, my issue is I'm a huge completionist, so I will look on the guides. Normally I'll play it through like organically, and then before I leave a place or if I get really stuck, I'll look at a guide to see like, did I miss anything?
Yeah, that's cool. I remember when Breath of the Wild first came out, I was very curious about additional sets of armor. So I did a little bit of perusing online about maybe, you read it and be like, oh, it's in this one shrine, and maybe I wouldn't go do that shrine right away, but at least I'd keep it in my head.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But so there's that, and then shield surfing.
Yes,
there's
you're
that
right.
mini game where it kind of introduces you to shield surfing.
Where you
have to do the race.
and it's a long race too.
Yeah, it's hard. At least I keep saying that. For me. I felt like it was hard. I don't know, maybe I wasn't like pro gamer, but
no, I think it was hard for me too. It took a couple times to get to complete it or to get it fast enough. There's also that thing with, is it Hebra Mountain? But the big mountain that's in that area, or is that Lanayru Mountain? Anyway, the big mountain in that area has a strange like circle chopped out of it. I don't know if you've ever noticed this. If you look at the mountain, there's a shrine quest towards the top of the mountain where you have to melt some ice to open up a cave to get to a shrine. And you can make a bunch of fires and swing your big fires axes and all that to try to get to it. But at the top of that mountain, if you go kind of down where you try to get into the shrine in the freezing water, if you look back up at the mountain, the mountain's a normal triangle with like almost like the bite out of the Apple symbol of the Apple products. There's like a circle bite taken out of the mountain, and it looks like a big peak, but it's a clear circle. And if you look from afar enough at this, there's even evidence of like, so something fell from the skies and punctured the mountain, because then technically there's this massive kind of crater crevice that goes down the mountain when it eventually stops, and there's like another small mountain. So there's technically a storyline there that some kind of comet or something came through and smashed through. I wonder if we'll ever get any answers as to what happened there.
I hope so. I hope they address that. That's really cool. I never noticed that.
It would be neat. I didn't notice it for the longest time until one day I was traveling up towards the mountain. I looked at it and I was like, well, wait a second. That's just the perfect circle right there, chopped out of the mountain. And then I kind of started looking around. You start climbing up and looking back down, and if you look at the right angles, you can see, what would have been like some kind of, like something crashed, right?
Yeah.
Not even just a natural object, but there's a whole skid, a big long like kind of skid mark that's so long, it's so large that you don't even notice it when you're walking on it. I don't know. Anyways, I wanted to mention that.
Man, I don't have anything else for Hebra. I kind of like quickly went through that, unless you have.
Yeah, all the Rito stuff's super cool. There's the kind of that valley of. A little bit like the desert, there's kind of like the winter wasteland part that's in the middle. There's a couple Lionels in there, and if you can travel up enough, if you travel into it enough, you'll find another one of the labyrinths. I know that, which is out there, and that's about it, I think, for that area.
All right.
Let's jump. If we're going clockwise, let's jump over Central Hyrule.
Yeah, let's
and
go
to Eldin.
So Eldin, this is where you have to have double heat resistance, so you get that really bad looking armor in the game.
Oh, that armor is it annoys me, I have to admit.
Yeah, it's really bad looking, but you gotta equip it. Your wooden tools will catch on fire, so if you have if you, for some reason you're using something wooden and you don't want it to be on fire, don't equip it.
Keep it in your magic pouch.
Keep it in your magic pouch. Death Mountain is here. Like, you were kind of trying to make Death Peaks or whatever. But this is where Death Mountain is.
Oh, right. When I was talking, yeah, sure.
Sorry, that was a
Death
callback.
Peaks. The callback to the Spectacle Rock.
But Death Mountain is there with Varudania.
Mm-hmm.
And Varudania is the little, like, gecko lizard type beast. And talking about that, I want to give everyone a little bug cheat in the game.
Oh, yeah, that's what you mentioned earlier.
That I found out, and I thought it was really funny, so I did it.
Is this regarding the boss battle or just
the boss battle?
Yeah.
itself.
Okay. All right.
So after you do everything you need to do, and you come against the Ganon of that area, so his whole thing is he like sucks things in, and he like bashes them out and whatever. Just keep away from him when he's sucking things in.
Okay.
And then when he's about to throw it out, if you get right beside him, it will like phase through you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you can just keep hitting him and stay there, and it won't hit you.
Wow.
So I don't think I took a single hit in
Wow.
that fight. And it was like the quickest fight for me.
The sucking things in thing is kind of a reference to an early boss battle in Ocarina of Time, where the first time you fight a Dodongo, it sucks things in, and you have to like throw bombs in its mouth, and that's which in itself is a reference to the original Legend of Zelda game, where you try to get the Dodongo to eat bombs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of cool that this boss, we're in the same kind of fiery area. We're with the Gorons. It's cool that this boss has a similar referenced mechanic.
Yeah. And then talking about that, obviously there's Daruk, which I love Daruk very much. He is very much just like an uncle type character, and I think it comes out more in Age of Calamity, where you get to kind of see more of the champions with him like getting Link to eat rocks and whatever.
Oh gosh, that's right.
And Link just going for it, and like the other guys are like cheering him on. It's just so fun. And then also Yunobo, which is like the new champion, and he's just a guy, he's doing his best. He's really shy. I loved the mechanic of just launching him at things.
Yeah.
I think that's so
Is that where
funny.
he gets in the?
Yeah,
is that the one where
inside
he
the
gets into the
cannons.
cannons? Yeah.
And you just launch him, and he just hits things, and then he'll like come rolling back and come back into the cannon. I think that was such a fun mechanic, and it caught me really off guard the first time I saw it happen.
Yeah, I enjoy Death Mountain in this area. I didn't find the Goron City. I had a feeling after my experience with the Zora River, I was like, oh my gosh, if I actually take this path up Death Mountain, there's going to be so many bad guys. So I took a very like alternate path. I was jumping from cliff peak to peak, and I actually came around and dropped into Goron City kind of from behind. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't get that kind of epic, cool like scene. Later in later plays, I'd come in from the front, and there's like the big bridge that you walk through, and it's all very cool.
Yeah.
And the town is neat. But I accidentally got introduced to it in a strange way. But with that said, there's fun to be had on Death Mountain. It is cool.
Yeah, I would say Gerudo. Oh my gosh. The Goron, thank you. The Goron City is probably my least favorite out of the four because it is so it's rocks. It's just rocks, which makes sense because the Gorons are rock people. But it's just not as like a big a spectacle as all the other ones.
Yeah, I think I agree.
But it also kind of adds into the more laid back nature of the Gorons. They're not very show-offy. They're not very high class, I guess. They want to hang out and do whatever they want.
It's a great point. It's sit in the hot springs and
sit in the hot springs,
and chill
eat
out.
some rocks. Which that was a thing that was introduced, which was the Goron hot springs, and using that to regain health as you made your way up Death Mountain.
So Goron hot springs first appeared in Twilight Princess. It was a whole thing. In fact, when you first go to Goron City, they don't really know Link, and they are chilling in like 3-foot deep water, and they're just all in their little hot tubs. And so I loved that stayed as part of the lore in Breath of the Wild. In fact, when I saw some like steaming water going up Death Mountain, I was like, well, I know what's going to happen in there. And I walked in, and all of a sudden your heart started going up.
Yeah, I didn't like put two and two together until when you see these two Gorons chilling in the hot springs and you have a conversation with them. They're like, well, come on in, like it will rejuvenate you or whatever. And so I went in and I saw like it actually was making my hearts go up, and I thought that was such a cool mechanic.
Yeah. Oh, and there's also, I think we might have skipped over it, but isn't there that there's a hidden hot springs in Hebra in the mountains there too? There's the little tiny hot springs that'll help warm you up. But I want to speak to as well the little minecart stuff. I thought was actually fun in this area.
That was really cool.
I was fine with it. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it took me a second to kind of get how it worked, but once I did, I had a blast with it.
And then taking it off over that lava lake and stuff like that. I've seen videos online of people lining up 3 or 4 of them and then driving them like it's a train and stuff like that.
That's cute. That's so fun.
Yeah, I like the railing, the minecart stuff a lot, which I guess in a way is kind of a reference to Skyward Sword, because there's a whole minecart section in Skyward Sword, which you'll get to eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, I am at that section, actually, now that you're talking about it.
Oh, yeah? Lean left, lean right, that kind of stuff?
Oh, I guess maybe not. I thought you were talking about the part where you have to,
the time stones?
The time stones.
So it's when you go back to that area the second time.
Okay.
You'll find yourself going to an old mine and literally riding on the carts and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
I'm noticing something on the map here. There's a little watery area on the northern part of Death Mountain, and it looks significant. It's just to the west of the Skull Lake.
Yeah.
But I think that's just a watery area. I don't know if that much is sticking out there.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't find anything on my notes about it,
That's okay.
so it might just be a place.
Well, let's jump on over to Skull Lake and Akala
yes,
and all the rest.
Akala. Akala, like you said, has Skull Lake, which is surrounded by Lionels. But if you get, if you get the shrine in one of the eyes, you get to have the monster shop, where you can get Dark Link's outfit and trade monster parts for different unique items. If you can stand how creepy the vendor is.
It is a beautiful area. When I first went into this area and all the trees were basically in perpetual autumn, at first I was like, "Oh my, is Breath of the Wild going to have a weather mechanic? Like am I moving through the seasons?" But it's not. It's just the design of the area. But I thought maybe the whole map would be going up and down through seasons when I first went into this area because of the autumn leaves.
Yeah.
But regardless, gorgeous.
See, I was nervous that the place was going to catch fire because they were right by the volcano. And
my gosh!
That really made me nervous being in that area.
That's what's going on. The volcano's just drying all those leaves out. That's what's happening. I'm just joking.
But being in Akala, you have the Akala Ancient Tech Lab. Mm-hmm. You get to trade in all your different Guardian parts and get really cool armor and weapons and all sorts of things.
From Robbie and his little robot. I forget what the robot's name is, but anyway. And his wife is there too, I think. But anyway. And it's cool because the tech lab, you're kind of hinted, if you go to, in Hateno, they basically hint that there's another thing to find. And so when you go into Akala, a lot of times if you're taking the paths, your introduction is to go, you're probably finding the tall tower stuck in that big battle, the big castle, and you get past it. There's a lot of flying guardians, and then it kind of opens up into this bit of a valley. It feels like a valley, even though it's next to the ocean. And there's just a lot of beauty. Then that's also where you eventually have Terrytown, is in the Akala region. A couple guardians when you're going up to the tech lab, and you're right. There's like a bunch of Lionels in between. If you go off the path a little bit, there's many Lionels. Otherwise, I'm trying to think of what else sticks out in this region. There's the ruins of the battleground.
Yeah. There's Lame Labyrinth, which is the one with the Guardian Graveyard.
Whoa, what are you talking about?
Which scared me.
Yeah, the one you have to fly to.
Yeah, you have to fly over there and then make your way through the labyrinth, and then once you do everything, you get put into beneath the labyrinth, and it is just filled to the brim with guardians, and you have to grab the chest you want and teleport out.
Yeah.
Because there's no way. There's 30 different guardians that all awaken at the same time coming for you, and it was the most scared I've ever been in my life.
There's in the DLC you have to go back into that labyrinth.
Oh no!
And you have to go one layer deeper to find a super cool thing.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine going back.
I think I just kind of ran for it. I was like, go down in, run as fast as you can, run as fast as you can, turn around and get that little EX chest and get out of there.
Run. Mm-hmm. There's also the Spring of Power that is in that area. I wrote down need Dinral's scale. I don't remember why you need Dinral's scale though.
Why you need it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't. Oh, maybe it's for one of the upgrades in the tech armor. But speaking of Dinral, this is also the Akala region, and also we kind of skipped it in Eldin, is where I think Dinral is the red dragon. I think, right?
Yeah.
That's where you'll get Dinral will come down, and if you're in the northern part of Death Mountain, you can get really close to Dinral. It actually scoops down only a couple feet. There are a couple of the spikes on Death Mountain where you can actually be higher up than Dinral, and it's a great opportunity to try to get said horns and scales. I don't know what you need. Maybe you need it as an upgrade in the
Maybe
in the tech region or something, or in the tech lab. Oh, we have that weird spiral peninsula here too. I'm seeing on the map.
Oh, yeah, I think it was a thing that there was like a chest right in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a shrine quest, and you have to carry a ball. You have to carry one of the balls to one of the platforms.
Yeah.
And if you're really clever, you can sneak across the water in some areas, or otherwise you just have to take this long spiral path around while bad guys are trying to fight you. It was okay.
It was fine. There's a lot of listables, but you know, it was a quest.
We also have Tingle Island in the Akala region and all of that stuff. The little over here on the side of the map, all of this little chunk of islands. I don't know if you've been there too much or not, but Makir Island I think is over there, and it's kind of a fun area because they're islands, but they're basically cliffs, and they're hundreds of feet above the ocean. And you go from one island to the other by just going on these rickety little bridges, and it feels very dangerous and kind of exciting and very adventurous. And I always enjoy it. I remember when I found that area, I was like, "Woo, high adventure on the seas here! I'm having a good time."
Was that area? Did that have like a lot of flying guardians?
Oh, there might be some flying around those islands.
I think I have been there. If that's the place I'm thinking of.
One of the islands is literally called like Tingle Island or something like that. It's just like a little reference.
That's funny. I didn't realize that when I was playing.
Maybe it's one of the DLC shrines that show up there. But yeah, anyways, it's a fun little area where you can jump from island to island to island, and it's kind of cool. And it feels very treacherous because you're so far up above the ocean. Come on, Schrodinger, it's okay.
Come on, Betty.
Let's see here. So anything else about Akala, or should we move on to the main event?
I mean, those were all of my notes for Akala. If you want to move on to Hyrule, we can do that.
Central Hyrule, I mean, there's so much here. I mean, this is almost a half an hour of conversation right here. But obviously the Great Plateau, let's do some of the bullet points, and then we'll talk about whatever we want. The Great Plateau is in Central Hyrule. The Colosseum is in Central Hyrule. Hyrule Castle is in Central Hyrule. Hyrule Field is in Central Hyrule. The Lost Woods is in Central Hyrule. That super dark area that I don't even remember what it's called is in Central Hyrule. And more.
And where you start out the game.
Oh, and Lake Hylia is in Central Hyrule. Wow. So where do we begin?
Let's start with the Shrine of Resurrection, the beginning of the game.
I love it. Let's do it.
So, you're Link. You don't know what's happening. You wake up to Zelda. You grab your pants, you grab your shirt, and you run out, and you have this epic moment of standing over the cliff as it goes Breath of the Wild.
That still gets me to this day. Whenever I see it, I'm like, oof, little chills.
Yeah. And then you get to meet the old man, and then, I mean, spoilers if you haven't played the game, but old man turns out to be the king, the ghost of the king, and that was such a huge deal when I played it. I was like, what?
Oh,
there
really?
are spirits in this game?
Ooh. And the meeting the old man first is a reference to the original game
The
and
original
many
Zelda,
other games.
where he's like, here, take this.
It's dangerous to go alone. Take this. Absolutely. The Great Plateau is phenomenal. It's probably the best training. It's probably the best tutorial in a video game I've ever experienced because it doesn't feel like a tutorial. You don't even, the first 4 or 5 hours you're in a tutorial, but it's allowing you to learn how to use all the things.
Yeah, it's just keeping you in like a confined space until you can get the training wheels off, and then they'll send you on your way.
Exactly. Another fun fact about the Great Plateau is I remember years ago, just a year or two after Skyward Sword came out originally, which was more than 10 years ago, there was rumblings about the next Zelda game. And it was going to be on the Wii U, and of course Breath of the Wild is on the Wii U. Much like how Twilight Princess was actually a GameCube game that they put on the Wii. Breath of the Wild is a Wii U game that they put on the Switch. I mean, it was developed for the Wii U, which is why the Sheikah Slate looks like the Wii U controller and all that kind of stuff. And they used to have map stuff down on the. You would actually activate your powers on the touch screen of the Wii U.
That's so cool.
They had to take all that out to put it onto the Switch. But anyway, so there was talk. There was like a few pieces of information leaks where some of the developers or some of the people that saw what Nintendo was working on for the Zelda game for the Wii U. The first dungeon is going to be bigger than all of Ocarina of Time, is what you'd see on the internet. And what they were talking about was the Great Plateau. The vernacular of it being called a dungeon or not wasn't really developed yet, or how this game was going to work. But it's true, the Great Plateau is larger than all of Ocarina of Time.
That's crazy.
Which is kind of crazy, yeah.
That is insane. Neat. Yeah, I was really surprised when I first got Breath of the Wild, and you get your first ever thing in the Great Plateau, the tower.
Mm-hmm.
And then it like opens the map for you, and then it like shows you, and like it makes it seem like you got like a big area, and then it zooms out, and then I was like, oh my god.
I had the exact same experience. I actually didn't get a Switch until just a couple years ago, so I started playing Breath of the Wild on my Wii U, and I remember, and I even came to Breath of the Wild a couple years late. I didn't even start playing it until like, I don't know, 2017 or something. But yeah, it unlocks and it basically fills the screen. And I remember I like pushed my R stick down to zoom out once, and I was like, oh wow, that's impressive. But then I was like, wait, can I go further? Clicked it again, and I was like, holy moly! Clicked it again. It was this tiny little dot. Like, I was like, this game's humongous.
Tiny little section. And that's when I really realized, I was like, I love open world games. That was like the first game that really like hit me of like, I love this kind of game.
That feeling of really being that feeling of seeing the part you unlocked, seeing how much map you still had in front of you or around you, and realizing that you were going to be able to go in any of those places was so exciting. And that's that kind of open world feel where you're like, oh, I can really go where I want to go and do what I want to do.
Exactly.
So cool. And that's like really I feel like that's what spiritually has been in Zelda games, but all the previous Zelda games, as you've probably experienced with Skyward Sword, obviously aren't open world, and they're pretty directed. In fact, they're almost linear. But the emotion, I guess that first Legend of Zelda was technically open world because you can kind of go wherever you want. But I digress. Also, fun fact, there's a cool website out there that shows the different sizes of the different maps of different open world games, and Breath of the Wild is larger than Skyrim. Yeah, I know, it's a little hard to believe.
Man.
Because Skyrim feels enormous, but I think Skyrim might be just a little bit more dense, so I think you move through Skyrim a little slower. But anyways, yeah, Breath of the Wild is huge. I can't wait to see what happens. I mean, it's probably out by the time this episode comes out, but I can't wait to see what gets added in Tears of the Kingdom.
Me too. I am so excited.
As we're listening to this episode, we're probably playing it because this is episode 7, I think, on the season. Doesn't matter. Anyway, I'm taking us off. Central Hyrule. What do we got? What else?
We then have, let's do Zelda's Horse Descendant. Because you're
Where is this horse? I've never found it yet.
You have to like, there's, in like middle of Hyrule, I want to say.
Okay.
There's like a specific stable. There's a stable where someone you talk to there. I could be wrong, but I believe there's a stable. You talk to someone and they tell you where to find this horse.
Okay.
And the horse is very skittish, so you have to like wait until it shows up, and then you have to like really sneakily try and like get to it, and then jump in and try and have enough stamina to calm it down. It is a beautiful horse, and if you do get it, then you also get the bridle and saddle from Zelda's horse.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
So it looks really, really cool.
I've tried so many times. I can't. I'm guessing it's like up here. I'm guessing it's like north and west of Hyrule Castle. But that's the sense I get. But I really don't know. I still haven't been able to find it.
Yeah, I mean, again, I had to look at a walkthrough to figure it out.
So I guess I'll start poking around at the stables in the central Hyrule area and see what I can get.
It's like a little tiny hill, and then there's like a little path underneath where the horse will be. And you have to like kind of hide on, like crouch down on top of the hill until it shows up, and then you go down.
Noted. It's like that's like the one final thing I haven't actually found in Breath of the Wild ever yet.
So there's that. Then let's just talk about the Lost Woods.
Sure, let's do it.
The Lost Woods, such a cool mechanic. First off, to get into it, where you have to you read like the little poem.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. We'll call it a poem.
It's like on a sign, but it's kind of like a
little sign that kind of points you in the right direction of having to light something on fire, a torch or a wooden object if you want to.
Yeah.
And following the way that the wind blows it. That was so crazy because at first I just kept running in blind. And then I would get sent back to the beginning, and sometimes I would get farther than others, and I'm like, what's happening?
Like, what's the difference? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, why is this different? And then I started realizing following that, and then slowly but surely I made my way all the way there. But it was so tense the whole time following it, because I'm like,
that music, everything.
Yeah, and it's like if you take one step off, then you're all the way back to the beginning.
And you start to hear the like get louder, and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, and try to get back on the path.
But then when it opens up to the Deku tree and all the Koroks and everything, oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
It's very cool. It's very cool. That's another area where the density of foliage really moves me. I love it. All the grass and everything. I guess I like parts of Breath of the Wild where there's a lot, like the jungle area where there's a lot of dense stuff, and I really feel like I'm stuck in a forest or a jungle. So also, I'd like to say that the Lost Woods mechanic is almost a staple for Zelda games. There's almost always a quote unquote Lost Woods kind of thing. There, in the very first Zelda game, there were times where, as you were sliding your screen over, sometimes they would repeat, and there was a way to you'd have to you'd have to learn a pattern on which way to go. Otherwise, the tiles would just keep repeating, and you'd be quote unquote lost in this area.
That's
you couldn't
so
get
cool.
out. Kind of a little bit of like that. Anyways, and so then the Lost Woods, it appears in it has a major role in A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo, and of course it has a big role in Ocarina of Time. But in Ocarina of Time, so that there's always this mechanic of if you go the wrong way, you get kicked out, kind of thing with Lost Woods. And in Ocarina of Time, the trick is pretty obvious. I don't think this is a spoiler or anything, but the trick is you listen for the music of the forest and which direction it's getting louder. That's how you know which tree trunk to walk through.
Yeah, that's a really nice mechanic.
It's fun. Sometimes it's scary and frustrating. Even Link's Awakening technically has a Lost Forest reference where a raccoon poisons you and your tiles just keep repeating. But when I started going towards the Great Deku Tree and I realized that I was going to be entering the Lost Woods in Breath of the Wild, I did think to myself, a bit like the Zora River, wait, this is open world. I can go wherever I want. How in the world are they going to make a maze in an open world area, in an open world game? And I think that this idea of the fog overtaking you and learning how to navigate, learning to use the elements that are in the wild, using the wind and all that kind of stuff, I was like, oh, they nailed it. Perfect.
Yeah, which talking about that, they kind of reference it in Age of Calamity as well. But when you first meet Hetsu, he's like so taken aback that you can see him as Link, because
that's right.
Normally people can't see the Koroks in them. And so I would love in Tears of the Kingdom if they might delve a bit more into that, of why can Link see them? Or is it just because he's Link and Link kind of was growing up in the Deku Forest in some of the games, like Majora's Mask, I think he grows up there.
Well, Ocarina he does, yeah, for sure. And technically that's the same Link, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a house in by the Deku tree.
Yeah, so is it because of the bloodline or something? I would really, really interested to find that out.
In Minish Cap, Link can see the Picori, the little tiny characters, but it's because he's a kid and pure of heart. It was two things or something like that. Adults can't see the Picori, and he was a kid and he had the right, that's fascinating because, well, Age of Calamity is what it is, but I think other characters, do they reference Hetsu?
Well, I think it's Link that first points out that Hetsu is there. I could be wrong, but I think he points it out, and then they're able to see him.
Oh, interesting. That's kind of a cool idea, because then you can have because the Koroks are, they kind of look like they're made of wood, and they might be able to blend into the forest, and you might be even looking at a Korok and not even know it until you realize you're looking at one. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think it's a mechanic that'd be really interesting to explore. And then obviously, there's the sword in that area where you get to finally pull the sword from the stone, so to speak.
Yep, I love it. I love how they there's a constant veil of mist and fog just kind of coming over the steps of the Triforce symbol where the sword is in. So cool.
The whole Lost Woods and the Korok place is just so magical. It's very clearly a different place that you're at. But I tried that sword a lot until I finally had enough hearts. Yeah. Because even the Deku Tree will be like, no, don't.
Are you sure?
You're not strong enough. And it's like, no, I got this. And yeah, I didn't get it.
I wonder if yellow hearts work. I wonder if you
I don't
add
think
up on
so.
yellow. No?
I wouldn't think so. I could be wrong though.
The reason they're doing that is because they don't want you to have the sword too early in the game. And if you get your 13 or 14 hearts or whatever it is, then you've at least done a number of shrines and probably moved around a little bit. But anyway, I love the Lost Woods too, but let's keep moving. We're getting a little long on time.
And then let's just get to Hyrule Castle.
Yeah. I mean, there could be a whole half an hour conversation just about Hyrule Castle, but I friggin' love Hyrule Castle. I think it's so cool. It's so dense. So many passages. It feels lived in.
Yeah, it's really cool, the fact that they actually designed a castle. So, you can go to Zelda's room and find, her little diary, and then you can go to the kitchens and the mines and the prisons, and it's huge. And they really, put a lot of time and thought into what was going into it, and then demolished everything.
Yeah, it's like they built the castle. Yeah, it's not like they didn't just build ruins. It's almost like they did figure out what that castle would work like would be like in real life, and then pulled
Yeah,
back.
and then destroyed it.
I love that you're in the library. You can feel how the people lived in that building.
Yeah.
I guess it is 100 years old though, isn't it? It's like they all left 100 years ago. But anyway.
Yeah, it's so vast. And then there are 4 different ways you can get into the castle. North, south, east, west.
Really?
Yeah.
I've always flown in, glided in, I always do the shield thing early on, where you fly in from the side. But
yeah.
I don't know of any other way to get on there besides the main
So I always
path.
went in from the back way in the south.
Oh, you gotta
so
tell me.
there's like a tall little hill that you can climb on top of. And then there's a
that
little
opening!
window. Yep, that little opening. You
can get in
glide
from
right
there?
into there.
Oh!
And then that takes you right into the mines.
Wow.
And that's the way to get in that has the least amount of monsters. Like, you don't really fight anyone until you're
sneaking
really
in.
in there. Yeah, you sneak in.
That's cool.
Instead of, like, the north is the exact opposite, where you just... Yeah, well, the front.
The other side,
yeah,
the front of it.
way.
Yeah, sure.
You just plow through all the guardians.
That's
and
true.
whatever.
That's true.
But yeah, there you can enter in all 4 points of the
So
castle.
what's the other one? I know the one where you fly down to the lower part. Do you know the one that would be from the east or what? You have notes on that? I don't know.
Yeah, I do.
I'm interested.
So the north is the one I went through, thinking if we're looking at the map.
Right.
South is the most dangerous. East, it says there's a little I wrote this down. Little coverage, but fairly empty, with a moat to the prison.
Really?
Yeah.
That's one. I've never done that one either. I'm gonna
And
try
then
that.
the west, which you did, a lot of coverage, boat to the mines, type stuff.
Yeah. Wow, I'm dumbstruck right now, realizing that these other ways to get in. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that the castle goes in. You are inside, outside the map. Sometimes you're walking on. It's just. It doesn't feel that when you look at it. It's one of those things. Oh man, I'm totally tongue tied. Once you get in there and on there, you realize just how large it really is. It is its own, level. It's its own island. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It is literally an island. But this is the first Zelda game where the castle's actually truly grand and big and lived in.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, even in Twilight Princess, you're like, yeah, we're going to the castle, and you spend most of the time basically in the garden in front of it.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of interior stuff, and Nintendo just nailed it with the design of this castle and making it interesting and exciting and a little scary.
Yeah, and there's even that quest where someone will pay you to go into the castle and get a lot of different items and stuff to try and get you to spend more time in the castle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's one you have to go around and search for a guy's family recipe that got lost in there, and you have to go around. And there's another one where if you find old armor and weapons and stuff in there and bring it back to the guy, he gives you stuff.
Oh, neat.
So it's just. It was a good way for them to be we spent so long on this castle, you're going to explore it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You definitely explore it, even when you're in it in the final part. It's not the kind of. It doesn't feel like some kind of weird boss rush at the end of a game or something like that.
Yeah.
It feels like you're really truly having an experience. It does feel like you're sneaking around almost the whole time. You're always on death's door and there's guardians all over the place. So cool. I did see that someone noticed that in the Tears of the Kingdom trailer, Zelda's study has been smashed.
Oh.
It's not there anymore, at least in the Tears of the Kingdom trailer. We'll see.
Oh, okay.
We'll see.
That's a good observation.
Mm-hmm. So anything left for Central Hyrule? The field in the middle is great. Feels big.
It's great.
It's cool. Yeah.
There's running around guardians, which scare me.
And there's, of course, I think everyone loves the reference to the original ranch in Ocarina of Time is the ranch ruins in Breath of the Wild, and it's exactly the same geometry. It's very neat.
There's so many good references to previous Zelda games in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, there really is. Whew!
Man.
Okay, that second half was a little long. I'm in love with it. That was great.
A lot
Kady,
of talking.
So many great notes. Okay, in general, the regions. Well, how do we close this off? This is great.
Let us know what your favorite region is.
Hit that like button and smash
like
that bell.
And subscribe.
I think in general, what the takeaway here is, I think Nintendo did a fantastic job of creating such unique areas, unique regions, but they all still kind of feel like they blend together. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of times you'll be in one region and you can see in the distance 2 or 3 other regions. But the art design is such that you don't feel like you're just going to go over to that little bin of forest.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
They all blend very seamlessly into each other.
Absolutely. Little tricks like when you're up on a mountain, there'll be a lot of fog. So even if you see a peak in the distance, that's probably just another mountain. That's, you know what I mean. It's not you. They do like atmospheric things to make it feel like things are farther away than they even are, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you can tell the people that did the art and level design for this had a lot of love for this game and this game series because they really did their research and they spent a lot of time and a lot of love making it.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times when I'm walking around in Breath of the Wild, you'll see an area and there's just some nice placement of rocks or something, or there's just a thoughtful little mound of a hill or something, and I just think like, a person made that. Like there's probably teams and teams of people, and they were probably just getting areas of the map, and then they're being asked, kind of like set designers, all right, make a thing. We kind of need this to be accomplished, but people were able to be artists making these things. It was very cool.
I talk with that with my brother a lot because he is one that will just plow through a game, and I'm very much a completionist, and he will ask me like why I do that. And for me, it's because I know there's so many people that worked on this game, and there's so many little things that you can find that are there for a reason.
Cool.
And so I like experiencing all of it.
Nice. Love it. Well, if people want to find you on the internet, where can they do that?
You can find me on Instagram at mind_of_Kady. Really weird name. And then same spelling for KadyRoberts.com if you want to see any of my professional work.
Cool. Awesome. I'm at Raptor Paint on Twitter and Instagram. You can find the show at Another Zelda Pod on Twitter, Another Zelda Podcast on Instagram, and you can just go to our website where you can find links to our Apple Podcast and Google Podcast and YouTube page and Facebook page, and all the things are there. Our website is anotherzeldapodcast.com. And I think we'll leave it at that. Kady, till next time, I don't know what our next topic is, but we'll see you in a couple episodes. Yeah, we'll find out and figure it out, and I look forward to it. Until then, I'll see you around.
See you around.